G'day guys, how's it going? Jordy here from The Huntsman. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a bit of salami. So I'm not particularly experienced in the salami. It's called in the big guns. Got Brent from Carnivore Collective down. He's going to show me everything from how to prep the meat, how to grind it down. We're going to choose our flavorings, work out the kind of chemistry behind the salami, and then we're also going to learn how to cure it.
So it is something that you just need to be understanding and comprehend the fundamentals of anything. So salami making, it's worth pointing out that you're not actually cooking the product. So there is an added risk when you're never cooking something or curing meat in that way. So it is really important from the get-go to make sure everything, even before you've put any meat onto your cutting bench, that everything's clean, sanitary, all your implements are clean and sanitary. And then again, you will not get yourself hopefully in trouble down the track. So in terms of meat selection, nice lean meat, we are going to get some fat, and obviously working with venison, which typically again doesn't carry much fat, we need to make sure we're getting some fat, which is moisture and a little bit of flavour. So we're getting that for some pork. So we're going to do a venison and pork combination salami today. About 3 kilos of lean venison to 2 kilos of fatty pork. Okay, so hopefully your fat percentage is sitting somewhere around 25 to 30%.
And in terms of sourcing this, you often see a lot of people say they're only going to want to go to the butcher and get straight back fat. But I mean, you don't have to do that. I mean, you could go to the supermarket, get a couple of pork bellies, you could pull the meat off that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't have to be straight pork, guys. You can use a bit of that pork meat. So what this is just trim off pork shoulders, but you can see it's still got a bit of that fat there, and that's what's going to help give us that juiciness to our salami. Because sometimes with a venison sausage or like a venison salami, it can get that crumbly texture.
Yeah.
And what this fat's going to do is really emulsify that, bring it all into that one solid product.
Now it is really important with meat selection that you would trim out every bit of blood spots and any vein trails or anything of that nature. Reason is as opposed to sausage making, which it doesn't matter as much because you're going to cook it. Again, if you leave any of these veins or blood trails or bruising or anything of that nature that harbours bacteria or an extra moisture, even there's a perfect example, a little bit of bruising. They will not cure those spots. If you leave them within the salami, they won't actually cure properly. So you've got to be really conscious of prepping your meat to the nth degree. Some people think it's a bit over the top, but they don't actually understand the reason for it. And like I said, the reason is if you leave it in, it might turn your whole batch of salami off, just because it hasn't cured properly in that little part.
Yeah, so if you're using, like, for example, trim that you've maybe pulled off your deer or from around the bullet hole, you really don't want to be using that for this. Instead, use that for your sausages.
Correct.
Something that's going to get cooked. This is what you want, your real primo lean parts, because you're not cooking it.
And again, you can see here in terms of what we've prepped, there's probably a little bit there I probably should have cut out of as well. You're better off being safe than sorry, given the nature of the process is quite extensive, or it's time consuming. The curing time takes quite a considerable time, so you don't want to have that one little failed
you put a lot of time, a lot of effort into your harvest, and then you've gone on top of that and you've gone and spent ages and you've been watching your salami, measuring your weights and all to be buggered up at the last minute because you were careless with your knife skills.
Yep.
I see you're pulling off that silver skin fat cap.
Yep. So again, we're not obviously going to include that. The fat off venison, if there is some, and particularly lamb, is quite crumbly and not a nice texture. So traditionally, obviously,
get that real waxy kind of mouth feel.
Yeah. So traditionally, pork's probably your number one, but given again, you've probably got a lot of venison potentially in the freezer or to use up, we don't want to discourage the use of that. We actually want to encourage it. And some of the better salamis I've ever had are probably more so a combination of pork and venison.
With the fat on that venison.
Yeah, so just...
That's interesting, because especially this time of year, when this is being filmed, coming towards the end of summer, a lot of the fallow and stuff are really starting to put on that heavy fat cap and leading into the rut.
Yep.
So yeah, that's great that there's just one more use for that kind of extra fat, which a lot of people will just trim off.
Absolutely.
Look at that silky knife work, eh? And he's got all his fingers too.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
How are yours going?
Yeah. No, I actually cut the end of my thumb off not that long ago. It looks like he's working fast here, guys, but you take your time when you're doing this. You really, splitting it through, making sure you're looking for those bits of meat. This salami could hang for 2 to 3 months. What's the difference of taking 20 minutes to an hour right now to then really benefit you down the track in terms of your end product?
Knowing we're going to mince this, you have to be really conscious of your mincer input size. So how much room you've got is obviously going to influence what size chunk you can put through. It is really important thing that I also mention all the time to people is that strips, not little chunks.
I was going to mention that to you. I noticed you going for the strip.
Yep. And again,
you're a fan because it's pulling it down into the grinder.
So what happens obviously in the auger is you've got the worm spinning, or the auger or the worm spinning around, and the meat will feed through and the auger will grab it and pull it through. If it's a chunk or a square, sometimes you've actually got to plunge it just to try and actually get it to pull it through.
Yeah.
So that's a hot tip for you guys as well.
That is a very good tip, guys, because a lot of, even you see some of the big American kind of media brands and stuff, they tell you to chunk it up, 1-inch chunks.
Yeah.
Where this comes straight from a butcher, obviously it will be working better for you.
Yep.
This pork, what I actually done was I froze it and I pulled it out last night and kept it in the fridge. And you can tell by the way it's still partially frozen. And the reason why we really like that is because when you're grinding meat, and we've spoke about this before, you want everything as cold as possible because then it's not mushing through the grinder. It's getting a really nice cut and a really nice bead, which is going to give you a better quality mince at the end, which is then going to give you a better salami.
Yep.
So this is nice and hard. The fat's really crisp because as soon as you apply heat to that fat, and it's not like heat over a flame, it's heat from sitting in the room. It just already starts to get greasy and then you don't get a fine bead on it. So having that, and you do it with the venison too, having that partially frozen really helps your grind. What we're going for here is we're doing 5 kilo batches. So the Carnivore Collective spice kits for salami work on 5 kilo batches. So we thought we'll use a whole batch. So we're going like on a 2 kilo of pork to 3 kilo of venison. But that's not straight fat. You got to remember for this one. If it was straight fat, you'd want to bring that percentage of pork fat back. But because this has also got meat in it, we're going a 2 to 3. Whereas if it was just straight fat, like off the back of a pig or something like that, you'd want to work around 25%. So about 1.25 kilos of that straight back fat to 3.75 of your venison. Yep. So we've got our mincer out. This is the largest in your range. They go from this size to a lot smaller size. I think they start around $250.
Yep.
That's the one that I have. The only difference in a large piece of machinery to a small one is there's going to be the amount of time it takes and the volume of mince that it can put through for you. A quick rundown of what you would want to know before you use it. You've got your cutting disc here. Your cutting disc is the thing that actually slices the mince as it comes through. You want to make sure that the blade's always facing out. And the thing that it goes against is your disc here.
Yep.
Notice that there's a couple of different types of discs. And why would we choose one or the other?
So it's all to do with texture. So literally having bigger hole size obviously has bigger chunks, which means it's more texture. Sometimes with other types of sausages, you might want less texture. So make it more mushy and more edible. So essentially you would mince through once, you would season with all your seasonings and your flavors, and then pop it back through the second time through the smaller hole, which gives you again a finer texture.
And also, a lot of people will try to jump to this straight away and then find that their mince is clogging and it's kind of not getting a good bead on it. You really should go one then the other.
And probably the other thing slightly too is it's to do with aesthetic. So obviously if again it's chopped up and it's mushed up, it's not going to be as visually popping, some of them I suppose for lack of a better word. So, but with salami, you are just mincing once through either a 10 or a 12 mil plate in general. So that's what
and
we're
this size is?
This is a 10 mil.
And so this smaller one will be
6 mil.
6 mil.
Yeah, so in most cases, these are the two you're going to be using most of. But as I said, in a lot of cases, it's more, probably a prime example is a supermarket sausage where they're trying to disguise not fabulous cuts of meat, and they're just making it finer and finer to make it look like it's an edible.
When you slice a cross section of that sausage and it's perfectly smooth, that's a very emulsified meat that's gone through a very thin plate. When you slice like a large chunky style butcher sausage, and you can kind of see the chunks of fat, that's only gone through this.
Exactly, exactly. And you know, again, hopefully, because no one wants to bite into a sausage or something that has a heap of gristle. So you're knowing, and there's more chance the bigger plate you use of that seeping through. So you've got to be really conscious of prepping your meat properly. All right, so
let's get our chunky 10 to 12 mil disc on. There's a little divot at the bottom there, which is gonna line you up. And then you want to put your cap on and make sure it's tight.
All right.
So we'll pop this all into our hopper. Our hopper is this top bit.
And there's no real rhyme or reason in terms of whether you should put the pork or venison through first. You're going to give it a good mix, so it's not really relevant. The other thing with a stomper or a plunger, in this instance, you shouldn't have to use it. You might have to use it if you're doing it second time around a second mince, but...
Or towards the end of it, when you just want to get what's left in the tube.
Correct, but still have that handy just in case you need it. Sometimes even like I said, how you prepped it, the meat may not go straight through, but...
And like we were talking about earlier, often like to put this whole thing in the fridge.
Yep.
So even if it's just this bit and you put it in the freezer for 20 minutes earlier, that's going to keep it all cool.
Absolutely. Always want to have a little bit of meat in the mincer. You don't want to have it running dry. It's no good for the mincer and it's no good for the meat. Okay, so always have a little bit of meat. But on the flip side, do not have the meat backed up the top. So just have a little bit of meat in there, turn it on, and just continually feed it through. Okay, so nice, easy process.
What about when you plug it in and it's already turned on?
Well, there's only a little bit in there. Well, so here we go.
Now these, they look like little worms. That's your bead of your mince. So if we're talking about your bead, see the way they're holding themselves together? If the meat wasn't full and the disc wasn't sharp, what it would do is it would mush into a clump. What we're getting here is a really nice fine cut and it's pushing the meat through. And that's also to do with the fact it's not being overloaded as well. Italian ice cream, I've once heard it described as, yeah. Beautiful. Now you see the difference in that pork coming through to that venison.
So we're going to make our life super duper easy and just use one of our spice packs. So the idea of these is they are designed to be made with 5 kilos of meat, which is again what we've already got made up here. Today we're going to use our Hungarian. We have a multitude of different flavours over there, about 10 in range as well, but this is probably our most popular again.
Why is there 2 packets in it? Tell me why.
Salt and cure in one, on the spices in others. Essentially it's to stop the colours leaching. If we mix these together, the colours will leach. The salt will do that to the spices.
So you can think of it like flavour sachet, salami cure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And again, these are designated percentages. Salt percentage is incredibly crucial to making sure you get a really good cure out of it. So this is actually double the percentage of what you would normally use in sausages. Yeah. So it is by nature a lot saltier product, but salt is your preservative, so you do need it in there. Yeah. So we use 2.8%, which is 28 grams per kilo. You can use somewhere in the vicinity of 2.5 to 3%, so 25 to 30 grams. We sort of hit that sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah.
But you run the risk if you don't use enough of, like I said, the product not curing properly, and over 3%, you run the risk of it just becoming unpalatable.
Salty.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're not eating it the same like you're eating a sausage. You're having nice little slivers of it that are well seasoned, as opposed to you don't just bite a log of salami unless you're in the mood for it.
Yep.
And the cure in this, what we're using is number 2 cure?
Number 2 cure.
Good.
Yep.
Right.
And that's for fermented or air cured goods as opposed to...
And that's one that doesn't get cooked.
Yep, correct.
And that's why you use it for your salami.
Breakdown. Yep.
Cool. All right, well, let's get the flavour in.
Yep.
I'll
get into it. You're going to let me do the mixing, such a gentleman.
That's it.
Now,
I'm happy to open the packet for you.
If this is a job you can palm off to a kid or someone that hasn't done salami before and say, yeah, this is the most important job, which it actually is. So I shouldn't understate how important this is, but...
Getting a good mix on it, definitely.
But what we're looking for here is to get the product and the meat and the proteins of the meat to bind so they actually stick together. And probably the one downside of mincing your meat a little bit coarser is you don't have that emulsification or that binding process. So the way you do that is by literally mixing it and mixing it really well. We do ask for a little bit of wine just to help, particularly even with the pH level and the fermentation and just the acidity of the meat, which becomes a little bit, like I said, less risky with the right pHs. But like I said, it's not going to be an issue. So I'm ready.
Chelsea cooking wine.
Yeah. So a chef would know wine. What's going on in this joint?
I like bourbon.
Yeah, okay. We could use it. No, you wouldn't let me use it.
No, definitely not.
All right, so this will take a little while. So it's not a enthralling visual spectacle.
But what you are looking for in terms of, when you can see it now, it's still very loose. You would almost imagine it like mince that you would get from a supermarket sort of thing, in terms of you could very easily break it up. We're trying to emulsify those fats and those proteins together to give you that unanimous kind of, we would call that farce in the UK.
Yeah.
So farce being your togetherness of your meat.
Yeah. And it's really, really imperative because we get so many people coming to us season after season that have crumbly salami, and the number one cause is undermixing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And there is a great tool that you can use for this from your store as well, which I use pretty regularly.
Yeah, and I'm actually regretting the fact we didn't use it.
I said, do you want me to get the mixer out? And they said, no, we shouldn't need it. But so there's an attachment that you can get for the Carnivore Collective grinders, mincers, and where it feeds onto the end of it, and what it does, it moves an auger, which is gonna mix this meat up for you. And I mean, you can turn it on, leave it, walk away, add your wine, and it'll get you that emulsification of your meats.
So the way we start to check the emulsification and the general bind is to start to get a decent sized patty and form it in your hand and see how that's starting to still fall. Once it actually retains up there, you know, as a general rule of thumb, it's right to go, but we've still got a little bit to go on this.
It's like when terrible cooks throw pasta at the wall, and when it sticks, the pasta's done.
Yeah, okay. And you think we're only doing 5 kilos here, and you'll sort of see the process when people start to it, and that's where again people start to undermix when they've got a massive big batch there, and it's the middle of winter, so it's -2, and they're out and they're doing it.
I mean, you've seen how little of a fallow deer it took to make 5 kilos worth of salami.
Yeah.
You're talking about doing it on a samba, a big red, something like that. You're going to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 kilos worth of mince. If you want to make a big batch of salami, that's a lot of mixing.
Yeah.
And for me, that's just one more reason to invest in the equipment to make it easier and a better product at the end.
Now I can feel it starting to sort of get to where we need it, probably a little bit there, but I don't know if visually, again, you can sort of see the bind starting and a little bit the proteins starting to warm up and almost starting to sort of mesh together and bind. So again, if we do a quick check of where we're at, and you can see the sticks getting there, better than what it was before. A little bit more and we'll be laughing, but I just honestly can't understate how crucial this is to the process.
In a lot of cooking, there's a lot of chemistry, but salami, it really is forefront to the whole process.
It is. And you can't, again, knowing that you don't have that safety blanket of having to cook it, you've got to do things properly.
Yeah.
There's no ifs and buts, you've just got to do it.
I mean, there's a reason why they brought in sodium nitrate in terms of the Australian food market, that it's an essential in a lot of products, is because it gives you that safety barrier where a lot of people, you know, there's been cases before in Victoria especially of people getting really sick from bad batches of salami.
Absolutely.
And what that cure does is really gives you a little bit of a buffer in terms of trying to keep that safety net while making this product, because you shouldn't be scared of it.
No.
Because we're not trying to put people off it. We're just trying to get people to understand that there is certain rules to follow. And once you do follow those rules, then you can start having fun with it.
Beautiful.
Can't overmix it.
No. And you're definitely better off over-mixing than under-mixing, all right? Because there's really no over-mixing.
Massive thing that you're gonna have to be smart about here is no air pockets, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. We want to get this in tight.
Yeah, and we haven't sort of mentioned it, but again, one of the key fundamentals and pillars alongside making sure you mix it properly, making sure you got adequate salt, making sure your flavour is good, because again, you don't want to waste the time, and that's where that recipe book starts to come in handy. You're writing things down and tweaking as needed. But air, and you don't want any form of air, because that's where bacteria loves to live and breathe and multiply.
So what he's doing, he's getting bowls of that in there, he's pushing it down into the tube, and then what he's doing, he's using his hand to push that farce, push that mincemeat down so that we're pushing the air out of this open side, and then we're not getting air pockets. So when you're cranking your handle and using salami, you can often hear a pop, and that's when there's a group of air coming through the tube, which isn't a massive issue when you come to sausages, but it definitely is here, because that's just a breeding ground for bacteria. All right.
Now, we do have to soak casings for a short period of time just to soften them and make them a little bit more pliable.
So in, and we'll flip this around because obviously I'm right-handed, but just so you guys can see, we're pulling that down. This is our plunger, and this is what's going to give us our downward pressure to push out our meat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it right until the meat comes out the end here, and that means we're going to have no air pockets. Okay?
Yep. Yeah, stop there. Perfect. So these are actually a special casing we import out of Ukraine, of all places, so Ukraine and Germany. We get a mixture of. So these actually have some twine integrated into the casing, which means you get some retraction and it just holds its shape a bit better. So even if your curing conditions aren't 100% optimal. That just means, again, you're getting a little bit more contraction as the salami cures.
So what Brent's just asked me to do here is put the casings in some lukewarm water, and that's just to help with the pliability.
Yeah.
So that you're not tearing and
a little bit of expansion, obviously, as they fill.
So these are collagen casings, or are these? Yeah,
they're a collagen. Yeah. So we've got the casing on, the barrel's locked and loaded, and we're ready to go. Now, one quick thing we've done here, and normally we would just say to get like a little fine pin or an actual pricker for anyone that's familiar, but we don't have that on hand at the moment, so I'm just using the fine tip of a narrow knife. When you're filling with a manual filler, you're obviously, in most cases, going to have a partner. Just make sure your communication is top notch. Just start slow and just slowly work it up, because I need to make sure that I'm concentrating on filling this to a really good level.
So you're going to be making, you're going to be stopping the casing from coming off by applying tension, which is going to allow it to fill full.
100%.
That's what you're going to be focusing on.
Just to allow yourself a little bit of tail width, maybe a couple of inches potentially at the end, just to allow, again, a little bit of tail to close up and tie up the salami as well. So just be really conscious of that, and that's why, again, your communication with your partner needs to be top notch.
Right, here we go.
Just go nice and slow and steady. Yep. Go a little bit quicker. Yep. And you can see that start to obviously fill up, but just keep going. Yep. Get a good sort of motion happening. Sometimes you can use a little technique just with a bit of a wriggle, just to fill all sides and all pockets of the casing. You do need a bit of tension without too much, and you can sort of feel the springiness of the casing and how well it's filling. And visually you can side it, but again, touch, you can feel that it's nice and full.
It's not going to burst when you squeeze it.
And just
more.
Tiny bit more, and then just take the pressure off there for me. All right, so nice quick release. And what we're going to do here is we're going to fill them all, then we're going to come along and close them all.
For your partner's sake, when you are twisting this handle, when you let go, watch out the way, because you'll get clocked in the noggin.
Yep.
And it's happened far too many times for me to be happy about.
So again, a nice fine crick, but hopefully that wasn't too big, but we'll find out.
We're coming.
In a lot of cases, what's good, you can see Geordie is struggling a little bit with the balance of the filler. Put a wet tea towel or some C-clamps or something just to clamp it down.
Yeah, I've got a set of clamps there I use. I just
stop there.
Too silly to get them out.
And just make sure when I say stop, and Geordie did, you take all the pressure off it. You don't sort of just back it off half a turn or a quarter turn, and then the casing, the meat starts or still keeps coming out.
So what we're making these for, guys, is obviously season 3 of The Huntsman. We're really focusing this year on prepping food at home that we're going to take with us, because what we're planning on doing is a massive trip, a couple of big trips that are going to allow us to cook food at home, take it with us, prepare it well, and then take it out in the bush with us. So things like salami, dried goods, we're going to get into later where we're going to be making some also buco and some things for camp. Salami is going to be just another one of those ingredients that we can use to make delicious camp meals.
So obviously we're going to continue to fill this until we empty the barrel. Typically the casings will vary, so there's another important thing to note: the diameter of the casing. So the roundness of the casing will influence your overall drying time. So the bigger it is, the longer it's going to take to dry. So it is really important for you guys to consider that before you select your casings. So this size here is a 55mm diameter. Depending on your conditions, that could take anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks to cure. More so probably in that middle of 7 to 8 weeks. But again, it's situational. But just keep in mind, if you do choose to use a bigger casing, it will take a lot of time. And again, remembering salami making season is only a short window. You don't want to be running the gauntlet sometimes at the back end of winter. Just
get yourself well prepared. Get your stuff ordered in early. You guys are always well ahead of it in terms of having stock ready for salami season. If you're going to do this in a winter without a cabinet, like we're doing this end of summer because we've got this the cleaver cabinet, which has worked so well. But if you're going to do it in salami season, order it early, have it all sitting there so that when you do get a deer, because let's face it, you don't always get a deer when you're going out for one. You've got all this stuff, you've got all this equipment ready so that you can do it.
Problem is when you're making salami with a big group of friends and that, and typically you're on the terps to some extent.
Oh, are you? On the terps.
On the terps. On the terps.
Not even metal. Terps.
Well, if you're a more refined gentleman like yourself and you're on the whiskey.
Yeah. So we've got some string here, which we're going to do to seal up the end of it. This one isn't ideal. What we're looking for is a cotton string, but this is what we had in the shop.
Yep.
Cotton being because it's not going to slip, so you're going to get a super tight tie.
100%.
All right.
So we'll do our best here. We'll just make sure you've got more than what you need, because sometimes if you don't have a tie on the end here,
you'll hang from this side.
From the one you tie, and that's why, again, it's imperative that you have a good solid tie and closure. So we'll just go a little bit longer to start with and just see how we go.
So you want me to pinch it?
Yeah, so again, if you've got
pinch and twist.
Yep. Again, just to encourage the meat to be as compressed as possible, and again, limit the air pockets. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. At the end of the day, I'm not going to do anything fancy, and I'm just going to hope that it
That's a straight granny knot.
Yeah. Normally I would use another technique, but
no
just
pitches.
In this instance, just to hold it. And then this style of casing, again, we're using
has pre-made,
has a pre-tie on it. So
beautiful.
Yeah, so that should be pretty safe. Again, that's nice and solid. You can sort of get not much give once we've tied that off, which is optimal.
So again, twisting the end of that, making sure we got as little air as possible, and then getting your partner to tie that end off, keeping it nice and long if you're gonna hang it, but with these casings, we don't need to. What we're gonna do is we're gonna measure the weight of each salami, because curing a salami is a science in terms of it's all about the moisture loss. Yep. And the only way you can tell that is by the weight.
Yep.
So we'll weigh each one of these, label them correctly, put the label on, and then that's when you get it into the fridge.
So in an ideal world, typically you're going to lose 35 to 40% when they're done. All right. So why I say ideal, or why there's a little bit of leeway, is it is a personal preference. They say from 30% weight loss, they're sort of safe to consume.
Yep.
But at 30% weight loss, they're still very soft. So typically, again, it just becomes a preference of, do you like your salami a little bit harder, moister, or softer?
Like you can go all the way from andouille to really hard kind of barked salami.
So as a finished product, as a starting weight, we've got
655.
Yep. So around 650 to 700 grams these should be. And you can see here, Geordie's just wrapping it around the tail of the twine.
Yep.
And again, it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be a reference and a readable reference. 650.
Look at you. Oh. And like, I've just grabbed some stickers that I had lying in the shop, guys. You can get proper stuff for this. You can get tags that can fit. I'm sure you guys must sell the tags.
And again, it's a good opportunity to diarise or write things down. Just have, again, a reference there. You can use it year after year as a reference point, because again, conditionally, which we'll talk about a little bit more soon, conditions can vary from year to year, particularly if you're doing them not in a curing cabinet that's obviously got adjustable temp and humidity. When you're relying on your outside weather conditions, they can vary from year to year. So
you're going to have hotter winters, drier winters.
You might use exactly the same casing, same ingredients, same method, same everything, and you might get the batch that does cures 2 to 3 weeks less because of, again, the weather conditions. So we have a lot of customers, again, come to us that are maybe novices or haven't had the experience of a year that's a little bit different weather-wise, and they might be panicking because their salami's taking more time or less time than sort of what they're used to. But again, it's all down to your weather conditions, which, like I said, influence your drying conditions.
Like, it's funny, it is an exact science, but at the same time, it's not, isn't it?
No.
It's absolutely all about, well, it's about anything in cooking, it's about experience.
Yeah. And you'll get to the point where, and again, we want to encourage you guys to use knowledge or use some sort of measurement, because again, knowledge is power, so it's easy to use it. You'll get to the point once you're experienced in your salami making journey where you can actually just feel the salami, and you'll pretty much be able to feel when it's done. But that's down the track.
There is plenty of information out there, guys. I mean, this video is obviously going to be one of them on how you do it. But not only that, Brent and his team also run courses as well up at their place and all over in terms of how to do this. So if you're feeling that this is something that does really interest you, but maybe that it's you're not getting all the information from this video, or you're still a bit sketchy on kind of, you want to ask you or the team a few questions.
Come and get hands-on.
Yeah, book a course. They do some great courses, not only just salami, but they've got a whole heap of them that you can choose from. You got sausage making courses. I noticed there was a brisket cooking one there, butchery.
Anything to do with meat and butchery. How our weights are all sort of
we're all 30, 40 grams off each one, so we're all over 600 grams, anywhere between 640 and 680.
The last thing you want is inconsistent batch sizes, which just confuse you. So in an ideal world, same size diameter casings, as full as you can get them, and try and get them, like I said, nice and consistent. So that'll make your life easier when you put it in the cabinet. All right, so these are a little bit over the top in terms of these are proper meat hooks, but this is just what we had to hand. So this is what we're going to use to hang them in the actual curing cabinet. So for anyone that's not familiar or hasn't seen some of our content on the Cleaver curing cabinets, this is it here. So humidity and temperature control. So the theory with that is we want to get it roughly 10 to 12 degrees and roughly 70 to 80% humidity. So what that'll encourage is a slow, even cure. If you don't have enough humidity, then you'll basically get a very quick cure, which can get some case hardening on the actual salami, which is essentially a hard outer rim, which then means it potentially won't dry properly from the inside out. So that is not what we want. We want a nice even cure, and that is controlled by humidity and by temperature. All right.
So we've got our meat hooks onto our red little hooks there. And what are we talking? You're gonna pull this one out?
So obviously again,
so you can't just do salami in this. You can do bacon, like in terms of lardo. You could do prosciutto. So having these different shell sizes allows you to do stuff at different heights. And we're gonna go up and hang it.
Yep.
Now, in terms of placement, Brent, what am I looking for when I hang my salami?
Just an even spread. You want to make sure that the salamis aren't touching at all, because they need constant, continuous airflow around it. It doesn't need to be touched up against the other one, and that's something to be really conscious of, that you've got a good even spread. But
and also not touching at the back,
not touching at the back. Full 360 airflow. And that's, again, a really critical thing, just making sure you've got that adequate airflow. You can see here there's lots of fan action. These are great units. These have got a lot of moisture in there to start with, so again, your humidity should be up where it needs to be, but you may need to add some water down to the humidifying tray down here once they lose a little bit of initial moisture loss, which is typically in the first 1 to 2 weeks. All right,
so after that 1 to 2 weeks, you're saying, yeah, and this will all be in the instruction manual when you buy your cleaver cabinet, but you're going to want to fill up that bottom tray.
Yep. With the humidity we're running in the cabinet, it will encourage a little bit of mold growth. Now, it's something not to be concerned about, particularly if it's your normal white and a little bit of tinge of green, so your penicillin good type molds. Yep. If you do see anything other than that, so any other colours of mold, that is a bad sign, and it's something that typically you err on the side of caution.
We're talking black, dark blues.
Yeah, reds, yellows, orange sometimes. I personally have only ever seen it once in probably 15 years of salami making action. Yeah, okay. Again, to encourage a good even cure, you do want mould on the salami.
Because you don't want it dry, because then you're going to get what you were talking about, your case hardening.
Yep, and then you're running the risk. So again, there is a fine line between having too much humidity and therefore too much mould build-up. So again, that's why we sort of say in that 70 to 80% range. Yep. Probably erring on the 75 to 80. But that'll encourage a nice even cure.
Those key numbers that we're looking for in terms of my salami journey with this, I put them in today. I'm going to check on them maybe once or twice a week. Yep. What I'm going to be looking for is in that first week to 2 weeks, I'm going to lose a lot of moisture from my cabinet in terms of, because that's in the meat. After that 1 to 2 weeks, I'm possibly going to fill up my tray with water to maintain that humidity. Yep. And then I'm going to be checking my weights periodically. Yep. And I'm going to be looking for a range of 30% weight loss.
Well, at a bare minimum, you will find most people at 30% find it still too soft and a bit sort of, again, the thought of eating something that's uncooked, not as nice a thought. But so
we're going to start at that 35 to 40 in terms of what will then become safe. Yep. But on top of that, you also want to take it periodical measurements, is that correct?
Absolutely, and again, that's why having a little diary or a little notepad sitting on top of your cabinet or in your curing area.
To kind of see how fast that that weight is decreasing in terms of water loss.
And just be aware, even these cabinets, to an example, might have variable spots where it doesn't cure exactly evenly, even though, again, that's the design.
Like a hot spot in your oven.
So in your shed, obviously, again, you might have a batch at one side. If you're doing a massive batch, for instance, one might have it be right next to a door or window, which will have different environmental, potentially, parameters than the one that's over on the other side. So just be aware that sometimes your batch may not cure all the way through, so you can't just a lot of times just weigh one and use that as your marker across the whole batch. Just be aware of these little things.
Thank you so much, Brent, for showing me how to make this salami, and thank you to the guys at Cleaver for allowing us to use their cabinet and test it out. The guys are going to be super stoked when I pull this out at camp. If you want to see us taste testing this stuff, you're going to have to wait for season 3 of The Huntsman when we go on our big backpacking trip, and we're going to take some awesome snacks with us. Thank you to Carnivore Collective for coming down and showing us. Brent's a top guy, and yeah, just another thing to add to the repertoire, guys, of what we're trying to build here in terms of what you can do with your game meat. You don't always just have to, you know, cook your snakes, schnitzels. You can do so much with it, and that's why I love cooking. And it just bringing that forward in terms of game meat and what we can achieve with the animals that we harvest. It brings so much joy to when you see someone, you put so much work into it, and you do something like this and then share it with your friends at the end. That's what it's all about.